Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful short stories ever written, Alphonse Daudet's The Last Lesson. We're going to see how one single ordinary school day can become this huge symbol for an entire nation's heartbreak.
No, really, just stop and think about that for a second. The language you grew up with, the one you think in, dream in, the words you use with your family. What if it was just gone, banned, overnight? It's a truly chilling thought.
And that's exactly where our story kicks off. For the people living in the French regions of Alsace and Lorraine, this wasn't some what-if scenario. It was their new, crushing reality. So let's unpack how it all happened.
So a little bit of history here is absolutely key. It all goes back to the Franco-Prussian War. In 1871, France loses. As a result, Prussia, which is about to become the center of the new German Empire, takes over these two border regions, Alsace and Lorraine. And with that takeover comes a swift, brutal order. From now on, only German will be taught in schools. No more French. That one order is the spark that ignites this entire story.
The whole story takes place on the very first day this new rule is supposed to start. But our main character, a young schoolboy named Franz, he has no clue. To him, it's just another morning. And frankly, a morning he'd love to spend playing hooky. I mean, you can't get more relatable than Franz, right? He's running late, he's terrified of getting in trouble, and there's a test on participles that he knows absolutely nothing about. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping. Spending the day outdoors sounds way, way better than school. He's just a regular kid, totally oblivious that his entire world is about to be turned upside down. But the second he gets near the school, he knows something is off. The difference is just jarring. Usually, the school's buzzing with noise. You know, the great bustle of kids shouting, lessons, desk slamming. But today, it's silent. So quiet it feels like a Sunday morning. And his whole plan to use the usual chaos to sneak into class unnoticed? Yeah, that's out the window.
And the weirdness just keeps piling on. First, he sees his teacher, Monsieur Hamel, wearing his fancy green coat and frilled shirt, his Sunday best, which he only ever wore on prize days. And then, the biggest shock of all, the back benches, which are always empty, are filled with the old folks from the village. They're all just sitting there, silent and looking incredibly sad. Franz knows, deep down, that this is not a normal day. And now, finally, the pieces of the puzzle are about to come together. Hamel gets up in front of the class, and we're about to find out why the morning is so quiet, why he's in his best clothes, and why the village elders are all there. And then he says it. The words land on Franz like a thunderclap. It's a sudden, gut-wrenching realization. The order from Berlin. That's what the notice was on the town bulletin board. This is it. This is their very last lesson in French.
That news just hits Franz like a ton of bricks, and in a single moment his entire world flips. The kid who just minutes ago was daydreaming about skipping school is suddenly flooded with this deep, painful regret. All those things he couldn't stand, his heavy grammar book, his history lessons, all of a sudden, they're precious. They're not a chore anymore. They're old friends that he's being forced to say goodbye to. It's that classic heartbreaking lesson, right? You never know what you've got until it's gone.
Every wasted moment now feels like a huge mistake. He looks at his teacher, Hamel, and doesn't see a grumpy old man with a ruler anymore. He sees a man who has given his whole life to their culture. And he finally gets why the village elders are there. They're not just watching, they're paying their respects. They're there to say thank you to Hamel for 40 years of service, and to say goodbye to the language and the country that was once theirs.
You know, Hamel doesn't just blame the occupying forces. He looks around the room and says, honestly, they all share some of the blame. He points to the parents, who often cared more about sending their kids to work than to school. He even points the finger at himself for giving them days off when he wanted to go fishing. The problem with their whole region, he says, is that she puts off learning till tomorrow. And that leads us to the absolute core of the story. Hamel's last lecture isn't really about grammar at all. It's a powerful, passionate speech about why their language is so much more than just a bunch of words. This right here is the central message. Hamel tells them that French is the most beautiful, clearest language in the world, and that they have to guard it, always, because your language is your identity. It's what keeps you free, even when you're in chains. It's the bond that holds a people together. As long as you have your language, you hold the key to your own prison.
And in that room, something incredible happens. Franz, the boy who could never get the hang of partisans, is listening so hard that for the first time ever, it all makes sense. He realizes he'd never really truly listened before. And maybe Hamel had never taught with so much patience. Everyone is just hanging on every last word, trying to soak it all in.
So, as the lesson winds down, the air in that little schoolroom is just thick with unspoken emotion. And it all builds to one of the most famous endings you'll ever read.
And then it happens. The church clock strikes 12. At that exact same moment, you can hear the trumpets of the Prussian soldiers returning from their drills. Time's up. The last lesson is over.
Hamel stands up. He looks pale. He tries to speak, but he's just too choked with emotion. The words won't come out. So he turns to the blackboard for one last silent message.
He grabs a piece of chalk, and with all the strength he has left, he writes 2 words as large as he possibly can. Vive la France. Long live France. It's this powerful, silent act of defiance. And then, without saying another word, he just leans his head against the wall and gestures with his hand. School is dismissed. The last lesson leaves us with that huge, haunting question. It's a story that shows us that losing a language isn't just about losing vocabulary. It's about losing a fundamental piece of who you are, your history, your culture, your freedom. It's a powerful reminder of how precious our heritage is, and how sometimes we don't realize its true worth until the moment it's about to be taken away.